Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this developer training for the Also IoT platform. We will just wait a minute or two before we start. Maybe before we start, just a quick check. If you can see and hear me and my colleague Alain. If you can you just drop a note in the Q&A section? Okay, so good morning once again. We'll start this training. Maybe a quick introduction from the both of us. So my name is Angad. I'm the product manager for this Also IoT platform, All Things Stock Maker, and our partner programs. The idea for today's training is to train development companies, developers to build applications using our IoT platform.
Yes, and my name is Alain. It's a French name, but you can call me Alan. Everyone calls me Alan in English, no problem at all. I'm do especially research and development with All Things Talk, and I will present you the more technical stuff of this training. So Angat will do first an introduction, and then we dive into the more technical stuff.
Maybe Alan, can you move to the next slide?
Yes.
So basically what we will cover today is a very quick overview of our IoT strategy and then get deeper into the technical aspects of how you build your first application on the platform. The next slide. So yeah, a bit about our strategy. So how we look at IoT within Also, it all really starts with the end customer. So end customers is where we get to hear about what use cases are needed in the market. End customers typically have questions around which technologies to use, how do they set up these IoT solutions, how do they maintain them, etc. So as Also, we want to be a one-stop shop which provides everything IoT to a customer. As you all know, IoT is not a single technology, it's a combination of different technologies. So you have devices, you have networks, you have a platform, you have applications, and of course, all of this needs to be secured. So our strategy is to really build partnerships with people or companies who manufacture devices for IoT, companies who operate these communication networks and applications. So all of this is where we focus on partnerships. And then as Also, since we are a distributor for IT and IoT products, we will ensure that the entire reseller channel that works with us, all our partners are trained on these solutions, are comfortable to deploy, deliver, and service these solutions to the customers. So it's really about building this whole IoT ecosystem with partnerships and our own capabilities so that we can deliver value to the end customer. So that in a nutshell is our strategy. And as part of that strategy, all of us in this meeting or training fit into the application development side, and that's why we are hosting this training. Maybe very quickly about our platform. So the Also IoT platform is the platform from All Things Talk. So All Things Talk is the platform builder. We were acquired by Also about 18 months ago. So our platform is designed to be an application enablement platform. So what that means, it's not necessarily the interface with the user. It is really the interface between devices and applications. So what we do is, as a platform, we try to ensure that no matter which device or which network a customer or a partner wants to use, we can support it. So we get data from devices, we have integrations with various networks, we work extensively on handling different data types, all those things. So everything on the complex world of different networks, different protocols, devices is what we handle. And we provide this data in a standardized way to anyone who wants to use this data to build applications. So how this helps is it makes life a lot simpler for an application. So there is always the same call, always the same way to get data, irrespective of where it's coming from. It allows you as an application developer to use different technologies, different data sources in your application, and it also allows the same data to be used in different applications. So it's really ideal for interoperability of both devices and applications. And of course, it makes life a lot simpler, a lot more standardized to build new applications. So that's really the core, and what you will see in the rest of the training will be how we sort of deliver this and how you can use this as a developer.
Yes, thank you, Angad. Now, how to create an IoT application. Of course, before starting your first IoT application, you really have to think about which problem we have to solve. So make a mock-up first. That will always help. It's a good strategy to do so. Which sensor data to use? So which sensors data can we use for our mock-up? You need to do a good research about all the hardware. There is thousands of sensors out there, and yeah, maybe you just need a sensor to measure the temperature, but if you think about the future, then maybe it's probably better to take a sensor that also can measure humidity or something else. So you really have to think about that. Also, another very important one is scalability, because scalability is the key to make a successful IoT application. You can, if you want to add sensors to your platform, if you want to, just expand your platform, because that, if the customer is very satisfied, that will go quickly. And then you don't need to think about, oh man, we forgot that. So we have to take hours of development to add an extra sensor. So think about scalability. And of course, make use of our platform, because like Angad said, we take away the complexity of connecting devices with our platform. Despite the technology, we support Wi-Fi, LoRaWAN, NB-IoT, LTM, well, all kind of connectivities. So you don't have to worry about that. Deploying a device to our platform is really, really simple. And then you don't have to worry about all the complicated stuff that there is to connect a device to a platform. So, what tools can you use to build your application with our platform? We have a couple of tools. We have APIs, we have MQTT, and we have webhooks. APIs is to get the tokens, to get asset information. You will see right away what all these things are. Don't worry. MQTT get live data from sensors. You can also set asset values on sensors. And we also do support webhooks to have an integration with third-party tools like MS Teams, MS Power Automate. So we also support that. Examples of an IoT application. You will see some examples on our platform that already have been created by our development team. So what do we have on our platform already? We have a sensor map. We have the location history. So if you have a tracking device, you can track the location of that device. And we also have a geofence application. I will show you those on our platform. But before I do, I will tell you a little bit more about our platform. So when you log in, you probably see something like this at first. Well, not as many grounds I have here, but you will have a playground. That is the first ground you have to, you will have. In our ground, a ground is just that contains all the devices. On your ground, you can have pin boards, you can have rules, you can have the applications for your ground. So that's why we're here. And you also can share your ground with other members. So, but the first thing that's really important is, on your ground, you have devices. So all these devices are basically a digital representative of the real actual sensor. So we have a CO2 sensor here, we have a sound sensor, we have a couple of lights, we also have a temperature sensor, and then we have also some trackers. And those are really, just the digital representative of the real device. So for the CO2 sensor, it only has one asset. So an asset, what is an asset? It's mostly the thing the sensor can measure. So for the CO2 level, of course, it's the CO2 sensor. It's the CO2 level it can measure. We also have a sound sensor, so it just measures the sound level. And the light sensor, of course, just measures the light intensity. But then, of course, here, like I said, we have, this is only a temperature sensor, but maybe we should look at another sensor that also can measure humidity. Mostly, the most sensors and temperature sensor can also measure humidity, but our sensor here just measures the temperature. Oh, sorry. So a ground contains all the devices that are digital representatives of the physical device. And in that device, you have assets, and those are the things a sensor can measure. This can contain a lot. For instance, the car tracker, it has a location and the speed, so it can measure all that. What else do we have in a ground is a pin board. By the way, this ground will be used for the demo application you will see later on. A pin board is just a representative of the asset. So here you can add, for the temperature, I added here a temperature value, but of course you can add something else, like let's say humidity. So we have, oh, I don't have a humidity sensor. Then we go for the, of course, let's say, soccer progress, CO2. Let's take CO2 levels. You have a level of 5,000, you're in trouble. But so as simple as that, you can add other assets to the pinboard. It's really simple, and this is just a representative of the assets. It's not an application, it's just what it is. Rules, this is not, if you want to learn much about that, there is another training, or there will be another training of it. But we are not going to cover this here. A rule is basically, if the temperature is above something, then do this. If my car, the driving speed of my car is too high, then give me a notification. That's all the things you can do with rules. But like I said, we are not going to cover this in this training. What we will cover is the applications. So like I said, we have already 3 applications in our platform. An application is linked to a ground, so you can only use devices linked to that ground. What do we have? The location history. For what the location history is used is, like it says it's just for tracking devices. If you have a location asset, a location device, you can use this for tracking. Here you see live tracking because the date of today is selected, but you can also use it for where have my device have been for the last months. And for this device, you can here select the device. My dog tracker is only been in my house. Yeah, my dog is already old, so she can't walk anymore. She's almost 14. It's a Labrador, so she stays a lot at home. She can't walk any long distances anymore. But if you have a dog tracker on your dog, you can see where she was and or he was, and then you can follow her up. You can also use this for a truck, for a car. It's just for tracking devices. About tracking devices, we also have a geofence application. And in the geofence application, you can add geofences. What is a geofence? It's just a virtual circle or a polygon that can say, if you leave that area, I will need to have a notification. So I already have here a geofence. It's my car fence. So it will, if I enter this area or exit, I will get a notification when I do so. But let's say you have a truck company and the truck is going from Antwerp to Eindhoven, and probably the most easiest way is this road. So you can add a polygon, something like this. So it's going to Eindhoven. Something like this. So this is my truck geofence, let's say. I need, now I've created that geofence, but of course I need to couple this to a device. So I want to link this to my truck tracker, and I want to have an alert when the truck exits his route. So now we created that geofence, we're gonna save it, and if the truck leaves this geofence, we will get a notification. So that's how you can follow up your car, your truck, taxi drivers, whatever. So we have a polygon, and we also have a circle geofence. So it's as simple as that. Of course, you can make the geofence as tall as you want. For your dog, it probably will something like this. And you can save the changes. That's our geofence application. So it's just for setting virtual borders around the map, and when a device leaves or enters that map, you will get a notification. What else do we have? We also have a sensor map. A sensor map, you can put any, let's say, any device, any picture, let's say a floor plan of the office, for instance. Here it's a house, and it contains one pinpoint. What does this pinpoint do? It is linked to my temperature sensor. When the temperature drops below 20 degrees, it will turn blue. When it's higher than 20 degrees, it's okay. And when it's higher than 25 degrees, it will turn red because it's too warm then. But you can use it for other stuff. Let's say if you have a occupancy sensor, so if someone is at the desk, we also have desk sensor. If somebody is at the desk, then show it on the map. It's what you have here, what we have here in the application. That's our office here. On every desk, there is a occupancy sensor. If they are green, then no one is at the desk. If it turns red, then that desk is occupied. So that's where we use it for. But for the demo, I just used an example of a house. So like I said, it's linked to an asset of a device. Okay, okay, exit and save. Oh, what I forgot to tell you about this application, about the sensor application. You can, if we go back, save and publish, you can have a link here. So you can copy that link and then just give it to somebody else, and it will see the same, that person will see the same application. In our sensor map that is provided. So that's for the examples we have linked in our platform. Of course, there are also, so these examples are linked in our platform. Of course, we also have integrations. We have an integration with Power BI, with Meeting Room 365, and those applications are using or webhooks. We are using the webhooks of those applications, or using our APIs or MQTT. Like I said before, we can use API, MQTT, or webhooks to build a third-party application. So now we are going to the technical stuff. I prepared for you a demo application. It's just it's a third-party application, but it can also be an integrated application. It's about a floor plan of a house where you can put sensors and lights that are coming from the platform itself. Where is it? Oh, there it was. We'll just put it here. Just to show it. What does this application do? Well, it uses API and MQTT to get the sensors out of the platform. So we have here a CO2 sensor, we have a light sensor, we have a sound sensor, and we have also lights. So this application is linked to this ground and is getting all the sensor data from this ground, and it's trying to integrate this in that application. So if we hover, let's say we want to put a CO2 sensor, of course. No, we're gonna put the CO2 sensor. Yeah, it's a 3D application. The sound sensor, well, let's say put it in the living room. Yeah, you see. Okay. The light sensor, well, I put it in a dining room, and the temperature sensor for the ladies, because they always want to have warm in the bedroom. So it's there. Now I'm gonna just add some lights. I really don't care where the lights are. And we put the blue light in the bathroom. So let's say, okay, I have all these sensors, I've put it in a floor plan, and I want to save my configuration. Once the configuration is saved, the application will have a link with our ground and reads all the data from that ground to this application. But it's also possible with this application. You see, we have here on the pin board 23.25 degrees, so it's in the bedroom. Those physical devices aren't located in the bedroom, of course, now, but you can just add it wherever you want. And if we turn on the light, you will see, oh, here, you will see, for instance, on the pin board, oh, the light in the dining room is still on. We can put it off, of course. In the bedroom, the light is also lit, and we'll see it right away on our pin board. But this is a connection from my application to here. And of course, the sensors are sending data to our platform, and it's updated here. For the lights, you'll see in the devices, let's say we have the purple light. Now it has a status of on. If we edit this and we put off, you will see there is also another link from the platform to the application. If we put it off, the lights will go out. And of course, on the pin board, the purple light has gone. That's a little bit what you can do for this simple application. You see, you have an interaction from the sensor to our platform, and from the platform to your application. Now, this is a simple floor plan. Of course, it can be something totally different, just using the devices you want. That's for the demo application. Okay, are there any questions so far? Before we're gonna dive into the real technical stuff? No.
So there were a few in the Q&A section. So I'm looking at that, answering. If there is something which I'm not able to answer, and then I will ask you to step in.
Okay. So now we are coming to the real technical session. From making the demo, how did I make that demo? What tools did I use? We are going to talk about authentication. What is authentication in our platform? How do we get the data of all those sensors? And how do we store the configuration of that application through APIs? What tools did I use? Of course, our platform, but you already see that. Our documentation, we have a really good explanation of every asset we are going to see. Postman, okay. Everyone knows Postman or not? I can't see the Q&A, Angat, if you just want to see if anyone has some questions about Postman. The documentation. This is especially about the APIs. And MQTT Lens I'll use just to test data if the device assets are updated or not. That's MQTT. Everybody knows what MQTT is. If somebody doesn't know, don't worry, we are covering this at the end of the presentation. So first, resource authentication. Before we are getting the data, of course, you have to be authenticated on the platform. That's and you can use a user token for that. When you are authenticated on the platform, you can get your user token. You can have the user access levels. You also can use the ground authentication that contains the ground token and what are the ground token access levels. And at the end, we'll see what an application token is. A user token, that's just a random string. For what can I use the user token? Well, you can create ground tokens for that. And a ground token, you will see later on, it can be used to get all the devices in your ground. Like I said, you have a ground. In that ground, you have your devices, and all the devices contains assets. So a user token can get the ground tokens to access those devices, to get ground properties, create, update, and delete rules, but we are not going to cover this one. Like I said before, rules is a separate training because it will take us too long to go over all the rules we have, and accessing the application data. Now, we are going to see a lot of curl post things, requests, but I have a lot of slides of this. I'm not going to show you this on the slides. The slides will be delivered to you, but I'm going to use the more hands-on way, and that is the hands-on way, and that's the Postman collection. So you will also receive the Postman collection from us, so you can play around with all our APIs we have. Well, I'm not going to cover all our APIs. You can see a lot more APIs in our documentation, but I'm going to cover the APIs I used to build this application, to build the demo application. So let's go to Postman. Where is it? There it is. Postman. Oh yeah, one more thing. The demo application you saw, it was a 3D application. I'm not going to cover how to make a 3D application. I'm just going to cover how I got the devices of our platform and how we can access the assets, etc. But I'm not going to cover the 3D aspect of it. So it was just an example. So I talked about user token, a user token. Like you saw in the presentation, we can have the ground properties of a user token. We can get the ground token of it. We can create ground tokens. That's all the things we can do with the user token. The user token, be aware, the user token can also be used to get device assets. Why not use that? Because a user token expires. So if you want to get, if you have an application and you are displaying some data from the devices and you're using the user token for that, it is possible. Well, it's not possible. It's just going to be not working anymore because the user token has expired. So be aware of that. Never use a user token to get device assets. So just that you know. A user token. How do we get a user token? We have here the URL. Now it's linked, like you see here. Your URL is linked to http also.allthingstalk.io. That's our endpoint for APIs. If you are using Maker, if you already played with our platform and you are using Maker, this is gonna be not also, but it's gonna be api.allthingstalk.io. So if you're using Maker and you want to test out our platform on Maker, you can, but be aware our API, the endpoint of our API calls is api.allthingstalk.io. So just that you know. If you have a private space on our platform, it's going to be your private space name and then .allthingstalk.io. Now we are just using also because my demo application is on the also platform. So how to get a user token? Just a URL and /login. What's in the body? In the body is it's a grant type password, your username. For the one of you that don't know Postman or are not familiar with variables, in Postman you can add some variables. This is the application builder variable container, I'll say, and here are all the things we are going to use in this demo. So, of course, you just can enter here your username and your password. You don't have to work with variables, but I think it's an easy thing to do. So, what can you do with the user token to get the grant ID? You will see here the authorization is a barrier and then your user token. If we send this API to our platform, you'll see it's a demo. It's just the name of the platform, of the ground, demo. And in the description, it's just the demo ground for application builders, and the description is in your main screen. It's this one. And of course, here you all you can see who got access. Now it's only me. But if you invite members, they will come, of course, here. That's something you can use with the user token. The ground token, like I said before, if you want to get access to device assets, so to their values or to the device itself, don't use the user token, but use the ground token. And how do I get the ground token through API? It's just this API call. If you send this, you can use this token to get your device data. If you don't want to go through API for getting the ground token on our platform, I will enlarge this. We are here on the demo ground, and in settings, you can see your ground ID, and also every ground has a ground token by default. You can generate a new token or you can delete a ground token. By deleting a ground token, the last time I gave this demo, I accidentally deleted my ground token and my demo wasn't working anymore. So be aware, if you wrote an application to use with our platform, don't delete the ground token. If you have an administrator that administer this, that someone else is making the application, someone else is adding devices, adding the assets to the device, the admin, let's say, of the ground, if that's somebody else than the application creator, be aware that there is a good communication not to delete the ground token, or otherwise your application, it's possible it doesn't work anymore. And that's the first thing you have to do to look for, is my ground token still there? Of course, you also can create a ground token. You can create a ground token with your user token through API. How do you do this? It's just this call. It's your ground ID. Yes, that's something you also can see in the settings. Your ground ID is also here. And if you see in the variables, this value is the ground ID. So let's say I want to create another token to use with my application. You will have a response. with a new token. And in the platform, if we refresh the screen, normally there should be 2 tokens. The newly created one through APIs, and of course, still the old one. So if somebody wants to delete the token, be aware that no application is linked to it. What else? That's so this API I used in my application, the ground token. I wanted to get the ground token to get the devices, and this API call will list all the devices. Like you see here, you have a CO2 sensor, you have the sound sensor, etc., etc. So what I did here in my application, turn off the lights. Now, because the application is saved, it will send data to the, well, it will retrieve data from the platform and send data to the platform. But here you saw, well, I can refresh this screen, then we are back to the, yeah, it's made with Unity. We are back to the initial values. So what did I do? I fired this API call, devices, to get, of course, I did a filter in the application because my ground contained also the car tracker and the dog tracker and the truck tracker. So I just fired the application to get the CO2 sensor, sound sensor, temperature sensor, and the light values. That's why I use this application for, this API call for. But let's say we have a temperature sensor. We had the temperature sensor here. And now you see it's in degrees Celsius. It's possible that somebody else wants to have Kelvin, but the sensor is also is only sending it in degrees. But then in your application, it's possible to fire an API call and make another asset. And how do we do this? For everything that is device concerned, we use the ground token. And in the body, we say we're gonna make an asset Kelvin. So it measures the temperature in Kelvin. And if we're gonna fire this one, you will see that a new asset Kelvin is created. Of course, the platform doesn't know what this value in Kelvin is. So yeah, here it's another application, another API call just to see if the asset is created correctly. And like you see here, it just created, it's the temperature in Kelvin, so we are good. What's the state? So the state is actually this, the value of the asset. How do we get the state? The state is fired by this, it's a get, and it's fired by this API call. But of course, you also want to update a new asset through the application if the device doesn't support, if the real physical device doesn't support the value, like say the real device doesn't support Kelvin. We made a new asset Kelvin, and then we are going to publish the state of the degrees in Kelvin. I don't know if this conversion is correct because I just put a random value in there, but in your application, of course, you can get the temperature, then you can convert it, and then you can send it to the new asset Kelvin. And that's what's happening here. But here you can see this is clear. This is degrees Celsius, because here we have degrees Celsius, but this is just 296. What is 296? Nobody knows. If you want to put this, for example, yeah, it doesn't know, it doesn't matter what pin value is out of bounds. Of course, I did. So it's just 296. Of course, here you have the title, but if the title isn't that well chosen, you don't know what that value is, because it just in our platform it shows in our platform save under devices, the temperature sensor just shows 296. But we can fix this. We can update a device asset. And how can we update it? We can say, we can even change the type of the device, but we are not going to do it. And we can add a unit, so it's much more clear for the user what kind of device it is. So now we update the device, and normally if we refresh this, it's K. So everybody now know it's Kelvin, because the K is for Kelvin. And of course, in our pin board, it's clear now. Okay, it's just a degree in Kelvin. That's something else what you can do with our API calls. And of course, if you don't want to use the asset anymore, you just have a delete call for that asset. So it's always device ID. Which device is it? The device ID, that's something I forgot to tell you. Where can I find my device ID? You have the temperature setting device with all these assets. And here under settings, in authentication, you can find the device ID. So let's say I want the device and the asset Kelvin. I don't want to have that anymore, so just fire that, and now Kelvin is gone. So that are the main important things you can do with devices, the assets of the device. Just keep in mind, don't use the user token to get device assets. Use the ground token. And yeah, to update everything what's concerned the device. So everything what is here, if you want to update it, use device token, ground token, sorry. You can also use the device token, of course. It's but then you can only do some things with the assets. If you use a device token, where is the device token? It's also under authentication. If you use this, let me demonstrate you this. Okay, we have the device assets. Create a device asset. I'm just gonna create Kelvin again. Get a device asset. And I'm not going to use the ground token here, but I'm going to use the token I copied the device token. of another device. So it's clear you can't use a device token from one device for another device. So if you want to work with multiple devices, just use the ground token and then you are safe that you can work with every device there is. Of course, if you want to add more security, you can use the device token. So if you are going back to our platform, we're working with the temperature sensor. Then if we are copying the device token of our device that we are working with, then we can access the asset of that device. But like I said, in most cases, you are going to work with the ground ID just to be sure you can work with every device there is in your ground. So, questions so far? No questions? Okay, great.
None yet, yeah.
Yeah?
No, nothing yet.
Nothing
There were
yet.
a few, I think there's an interesting one which says, can we add some information next to a token so that we know where it is used? I think that's a good suggestion. We cannot do that right now.
No, we
But
can't.
something can, I've taken a note of it, maybe in one
Yep.
of the next releases we have.
So just to put here a comment. No, we can't do that. Okay. Good remark. No other questions so far? Okay, great. So, like I said, this presentation will be sent to you, so you don't also in Postman, we have here a collection of all the API calls in this format. So you don't have to worry about note them, take some notes. You don't have to worry about that. This collection will be also sent to you together with the presentation where everything is in curl. So if you want to use it in, I don't know, C#, Python, it's all there. So that was the ground token. How do we get a ground token? How can you create a ground token? This is a slide about the ground token. How do we get that in the front end? Like you see, here is ground. You go to settings. Here were no ground tokens in this ground, but of course you can just click generate new token and a new token will be generated. That's what I said, the access levels of a ground token. Those are the API calls for all the devices and how to create a device asset, how to get a device asset and update the device asset. It's all there and you will receive it after the training. Oh, that's one. Oh yeah, I covered that one too. So now an application. This part is for if you have here our platform, you have a ground. This part is for this. How can I create an application? So the previous, you can use it for a third-party application. like an integration with our platform. But now we are going to cover how must I prepare my application to use in a ground. We don't fully support it yet, but you can prepare your application already. So there are some steps you have to do just to prepare your application that it can be showed here. You can register. I don't know if some of you already did that for the beta program. So, and then you will get a notification when you can try to get your application here in your ground. But now I'm gonna show you how you already can prepare your application so you don't have to worry about it in the future or don't have to convert it. So for your application, an application also works with a specific token. So if you want to, if you have your application, you also have your own application token. How do I get an application? Let's say first I want to have my application token, but how if your application is published, I want to get a token to do all the stuff with my application as possible. So we have here already 3 applications. Let's say we have our tracking app, the application ID, because like I said before, here in the demo ground under settings, you have your ground ID. So you can use it in your API call. For your devices, if you select the device, you go under settings, authentication, you also have here your device ID. But in applications, it's because an application, in this application, there are no settings you can see. So how can I get my application ID for this application? Well, it's just located here in the URL. So we are going to copy this one. The application ID. I already filled it in my variables. Application ID. So how do I get the token? Also, an application, it's a special case. You can't use the ground token for it. You have to use the user token for it, because you want to create a token. You have your user level, it's the highest level, and on the highest level you can have access to different tokens, but a ground token can't have access to other tokens. That's why you have to use the user token. Okay, I see. The first time you will create your application, you will see that it has no token, but this application is already created and it has a token. So that's okay, but that's how you can see, oh, my application, does it already have a token or not? That's how you can see it. But of course, you can create another token for it. And now you have I've created another token for that application. And now you see it has 2 tokens you can use in your application. First, we are going to get the application. I just want to show you this. It's a geofence application. So it's from type geofence. And in the configuration, you will see in a minute, you can add anything you want. It's just something that your application will read to get its configuration of it. So we have the zoom level here. We have some geofences created. In that geofence, we have some devices. It's the device, it's a member of this ground, but actually it all doesn't matter. You put here in the configuration, you put your own configuration of your own application. So, but it has to have a configuration that you can read later on, and that pops out your application to the latest status, let's say. You also can delete an application. I'm not going to delete that one application, but it's the same. It's just delete and then the application ID. But the most important one, it's how do I create my application? If you register for the beta program, later on, if you want to have it in our, in your ground, if you want to have it in your ground here, you can better prepare your application and already make call the API call and just prepare it. It's from type custom because it's not fully integrated yet, so your application will be has a type custom. Not that's for the application token. And if your application is registered on your on our platform, then you probably the type will be all things talk / your application, not name, your application container, let's say, the name of your application container. So, but now, for now, just leave it to custom. And while I had a description of floor plan with sensors and lights, because that was the demo application about. And when I pressed save, this was created. So I had the CO2 sensor, its location, so it was a 3D application, so it's X, Y, Z, and the rotation was this. That's how I prepared my application for it. So if I press save config, then this is created. The lights, the status of the lights, the last status of the lights is saved, etc., etc. And here in resources, it's which device did I use. So it's a type device, and I used and the device ID. So I used all these devices in my application. And that's so the configuration. It's just something that you want to config. It's just to when you open your application, this config will be read, and then you know, in my case, where the lights were, what the rotation was the light on or off, the latest status. That's how you can prepare the application, and which devices did I use in my ground. So then we know, okay, that application uses this devices. Are the devices allowed in this ground? Yes, okay, the application is okay. So just to prepare your application, get your resources ready, get your configuration ready, and you're good to go. That's something that all these 3 applications do. And then, of course, if your application is published or your container is published, you can get your application. You can get the application token. What can you do with the application token? Sorry. The application token, so you have access to all the devices that are being used with the application token. You can read the configuration of your application with the application token, etc., etc. But that's why you use the application token. So I promised for you guys at the end I will talk a little bit more about MQTT. If for the one in the training that isn't aware what MQTT is. MQTT is just a protocol, and it contains of a broker. That's a broker. You subscribe to the broker a message. You subscribe a message to the broker, and that broker, if a client is subscribed to one message and another device is sending a publish to that broker, then the broker will know, oh, all these clients are subscribed to that message. I will send them the value of that message to all the clients that are subscribed to that message. So, and those messages are called, when you subscribe to something, it's called a topic. How can a topic be, what's the structure of a topic? Let's say I want a topic, here is an example of how can I get the energy consumption of some house. So it's in the country, here it's split up in the region, the postal, etc., etc. That's how you can subscribe to a topic. But you can also use wildcards. So let's say this example, it's BE, so it's in Belgium, is OVL, it's Oost-Vlaanderen, so Belgium is divided in several provinces, and this one is one of them, and 9000 is Ghent area in Belgium. So, and I want to consume all the, in Ghent, I want to consume all the streets and all the houses in that street for the energy consumption. So basically, it's the energy consumption for all the houses in Ghent. If you want to be more specific, you can add a street, and here, okay, it's with a house number, and I want to have the energy consumption of just one house in Ghent. That's how you can use wildcards in your topic. I will give you an example with MQTT Lens. MQTT Lens is a free app that you can use for testing MQTT messages. It is supported for Mac also. I'm working on a Windows PC, but it's also supported for Mac. So just that you know. Okay. Lens, where is my MQTT? Oh, there it is. So if you want to test MQTT Lens, if you want to configure it with our broker, All Things Talk broker, here is the configuration you have to do. First, the URL. Like I said, if you're working, it's the same as with APIs. If you're working with our Maker platform, please change this to API. Okay. If you're working with our Also platform, or if you have a private space, it's your private space name and allthingstalk.io. It's always on port 8083. The client ID is just a random client ID. It doesn't matter, it just has to be unique to connect to our platform. And the username, this is also the ground token. So if you see here, sorry, under settings, our ground token, I guess it's this one, R1. Yep, that's your ground token you have to use if you want to test MQTT. And the password is just a random string. It doesn't matter what you fill in there, just a random string. And if you do that and save the changes, you are connected to our broker. Let's say, okay, connection lost, connection established. That's great. Let's say I want to have the temperature of the device, of the temperature asset. So how do you do this? So you have a connection to our broker, then you have a topic where you subscribe to, and it starts with device. Come on. Okay, it starts with device. That's our device ID, like you see here. We're working with temperature sensor authentication. That's our device ID. And the topic is asset. I want to have the value of the asset. Of which asset? This is the name of the asset. The name is this small, so light gray, because you can also set a title for it. Temperature. That's the more black one, but if you want to go for a topic and also for the API calls, it's always using the name here. So it's in small, it's case sensitive, don't forget that. Temp, and then if you want to have the feed of the asset, the feed is the value of the asset. You just put feed. And now you are subscribed. So normally, if I change the temperature here in 25.6 degrees, just overwrite my sensor for a moment. It says the asset has been updated, and normally you should receive, here you can see you received a message at this time of 25.6 degrees. So with MQTT, it's very easy to get asset values of our platform. You just connect with the broker, our allthingstalk broker, with the ground token. Password doesn't matter. You subscribe to a topic for that asset. Don't forget to add feed, because that's the key that we use to publish the value. Well, to retrieve the value. And now you have 25.6 degrees because I changed it. Of course, you can also, through MQTT, change the value of an asset. So let's say we want to publish to the same asset, the temperature asset. But now, if you want to publish and we change the value, you have to publish it to state. And of course, you have to have a JSON message with value, and then in this case, it's a number, because the temperature asset is of type number. So don't use quotes here, because it's of type number. So if we're going to publish, so now that's published. And you see here through MQTT, I published a new value of 23.5 degrees. That's another way to retrieve and access assets in a very lean way. It is platform independent MQTT, so you can use it through Python, through C#, some sensors, some devices support this. So it's really easy to do. Our pin board, if I'm not mistaken, is also working the same way. So our pin board subscribe to the message that you add on the pin board, and then it just receives those values. So that was it for me. I think if I have no, I don't think I have another slide. So here, tools to test MQTT Lens. Here it's all explained. You can just download MQTT Lens. It's also supported for Mac. For those of you who are not using a Windows PC, you can add it. Here the host name, also .allthingstalk.io. Please, if you use Maker, change this value to api.allthingstalk.io. The client ID, just a random client ID. The username, it's a ground token. Use a ground token if you want to get messages from several devices. And okay, if you want to secure a little bit more, then you can have a device token. And the password is just a random string. Here you have another slide. If you are connected to our broker, how it's the device ID, it's the asset temperature. Be aware that this is the name of the asset, not the title, the name in case sensitive. And you connect it to feed if you want to retrieve things, if you want to publish the state. So change the value of the asset, you just publish it to state. And of course, don't forget the JSON message. That's how you can use the MQTT tool, but it's all explained in the slides. So here are a couple of resources, our technical documentation, the API references. Like I said, you will also retrieve the collection in Postman. Our learning center, there you can find a lot of information about all of our platform. And okay, for integration examples with, like I said, third-party examples, here is a link to them with a lot of explanation how you can integrate these with our platform. If you have other questions, technical questions, if you find the document, if you're not finding the right documentation, you always can email to support@allthingstalk.com. So that was it for me. I hope you learned something, how to work with our platform, and thank you. And I hope you can make some great applications out there using our platform. Thank you.
Great. Thanks everyone for joining. you will get the recording of this webinar, the presentation, and as Alain mentioned, a Postman collection. I'll just paste a link. If you can drop your email IDs once again in the support, in the Q&A, so we know who all will get this information. There is also a small survey. It takes about 3-4 minutes. It's just a quick feedback on this training. Since we've just started giving out these trainings, it will be good to hear what your feedback is. And also it will help us plan some of the future trainings. So that's it, I guess. Thank you once again. And we hope to see you soon in one of the next trainings as well. Thank you and have a good day.